Hey y'all. So this video is actually ultimately meant for YouTube, but I'm just on here because frankly, like, I look better on here and it's actually a very clear picture. So what I'm talking about today is basically taking you through the journey of my story, because I've never actually told it, and also like what I've been up to for 2 years, or the past 2 years where I sort of disappeared, and also what Soul Codes is about and my personal evolution. So if you're just joining, this is actually meant for YouTube. It's not meant for IG. If you're catching it, consider yourself very lucky, I guess, because it's going to come down from here. So lately I've been going through a lot of ego deaths. And when I do this, I've done this like 3 or 4 times within the past like 5 years. It's just like delete all my shit offline. I was born in 1983, so I grew up in a time where we didn't really have internet. And, I would say like the past 5 years has been living in changing timelines, and that we're all in a space where we need to take accountability over our own self-governance, and over our own well-being, and just kind of like release conditioning. So like a lot of my conditioning was being reliant upon external structures, particularly for spirituality, for beauty standards, for just being a human in general. That basically the society of which we live in says that everything that we are inherently is not good enough. That is the belief structure that I've been really like looking at the texture of that emotionally, and basically just been undoing for the past like 5 years. So, the core of it is that I have like notes here, and I have an outline because I tend to go off track, but in all of the different challenges that we go through and that I've been through, that basically like those have been the greatest teachers. Those have been the guideposts for my soul to know exactly how to move forward. Because like, I'm gonna just be real. Like, I wrote in this journal, I wrote the other day that getting into the addictions that the brain may have and the different thought pathologies, and then understanding like the neuroscience. Like, this isn't just some kind of spiritual like, oh, I'm meditating upon my thoughts, which is a great thing to do. It is all based upon basically the circuitry of our brain, and I've had to look at that. And then further in my body wisdom, I had to really understand the addictions that my body has to emotional memories of the past. And I think like in that, getting real close to it and moving beyond the physical sensations into what it actually means for spirit, that it's a whole alchemical ass process for that. Because in that you basically lose, and I don't want to say you, I'm saying like, I'm talking about myself, where in that process it's very messy, and so you start holding parts of yourself, and you start seeing parts of yourself and hold it in compassion. That's what I tend to go to. Some people tend to internalize it and then go to other non-healthy patterns. But I think like as we shift into this age of more of a feminine approach, I mean, I'm not saying feminine in general, I'm just saying like a feminine approach to life, we could be softer. Because like all of the battles that we go through, like those challenges that I'm talking about in the genesis of my background, it can make you very hard. And in that hardness, you lose the ability to feel. And I think that's one of the things that if you are going down this journey of self-discovery, self-awareness, that it's all about basically being able to stay soft. Like, can you still hold yourself in compassion despite what you've been through? Our society tends to honor the fight. And I think that as we're shifting into being lighter beings, that's just not who I am anymore. And so some of the pivotal moments that led me to work with women who are going through grieving, not just women, I work with actually, right now the majority is male embodied beings. But in the past, as you know, that I've worked, well, maybe you don't know, but I've worked with primarily women who are going through the grieving process or are cancer survivors. And so what led me to that is because of my own journey and being able to navigate it, and that sort of warriorship that we honor in our society. And now I think I'm shifting into this place of more of like softness. I don't even think that's like a flex. I'm just saying like that's just naturally how it is that the human story, the human psyche is so fractured at the, like collectively, I'm talking collectively, is so fractured that like we have to adapt. And if you don't adapt, you can just get sucked down into the feelings. And I think like feelings are a great guidepost, but for the most part, that warriorship, the balance of staying soft and having that warriorship to come back harder and stronger every single time with consistency. I think that's like the secret to being able to alchemize. But when you're in the pits of it, like just diagnosed with cancer, or your child just passed, which is another thing that I've gone through, to be able to hold space for that level of depth of feeling is, I think, the human story. I think that is what makes me being able to adapt. And so that's really what the genesis was. And some of the earlier experiences I had teaching yoga were with boomers who would never even be on Instagram or any of this stuff. And that's how I got my experience in being able to understand bodily wisdom, not only of myself, but then kind of taking myself out of myself, if I will, and holding space for someone who has breast cancer and just had a mastectomy. So in my spiritual awakening, which I've had probably like two of them, the last one was here in Florida on the beach after a lot of mushrooms, but prior to that it was like 2016. And when in 2016, that's when I had the realization of how dark it really is, what the level of darkness is that we're dealing with here on this planet, and why we came here at the time that we did. And that is actually quite an honor to be here during this time. This time, if I didn't have Tantrika Kundalini, and if I didn't have that intrinsic knowledge of like being present in it, I think I might have went like AWOL, because we come in here conditioned, and then to see all of our conditioning basically be false, it's like it's really a trip to be able to stay whole, and like functional in a way. So a lot of what yoga did for me, and like the movement practice, and just coming into just the simplicity of the body. Because when I was, like going through chemo is what annihilates the body. It's not necessarily the cancer itself. Like I had a really slow moving cancer in the lymph system, and the chemo is what would really take me out. And I had very young kids at the time that I was going through this. And I think that my husband and I were really coming into ourselves. Like we weren't even fully formed yet as individuals. So to be going through this together was like a very powerful experience, I think, for both of us, to be able to become more of a spiritual being having a human experience rather than just in our humanity, in our lower vibrational state, which there's nothing wrong with. We come here really to feel that. And so a part of what I like to call the Tantrika Kundalini tradition is essentially becoming one with that, meaning you're feeling everything in it and completely present with it, that it actually just dissipates. It is the release of all. It's almost like a liberation, because you're in it. You're in it so much that it just sort of dissolves. I don't know. That's not really the best explanation at all. But part of the soul code, I decided to rebrand my business a million times. So let me back it up. Opened a studio, multiplied that effort. It was a disaster. COVID hit, didn't go bankrupt, but did have to give up the studios, and then started selling infrared day spa franchises, memberships, and also the actual entire gym setup, and was really successful in that. Gave me a really good idea of how to run a business, the P's and Q's of it, not just emotionally, because in my own stuff, I was so attached to it emotionally that if somebody canceled their membership, I was legitimately hurt by it. And I was like, what is wrong with me? I need to get more credentials, all of the things that the ego would say is not good enough. And so as I sort of grew within business and grew within myself and my maturity and just understanding the nature of the matrix, and then a soul within a matrix, that's a lot in and of itself. That's for a whole nother time. But in this talk, I'm just kind of talking generally about my genesis, my awakening, what brought me into yoga, and the philosophy of what soul codes really means. So the original name of the yoga studio was West End Yoga, which actually represents the shadow side. So it was going to be all focused on shadow work. And then I grew out of shadow work because I was no, I want to be the light. And so I renamed it Starseed. And then that one kind of stuck. So, and I still have such an affinity for what I built with that and what we built. It wasn't just me. I was the person that was just sort of the administrator, but there was many people who fed that egregore of empowerment, freedom, liberation. So a lot of my movement methodology and practice is rooted in Hatha yoga, but also Bhuti yoga, which was at the time very new, and we were pretty much the only studio that actually was doing that type of practice. And I give a shout out to that whole tribe. Without them, I don't think I would be as free, as authentic in my how I present and my expression, simply because all of the feelings from all of the experiences that I had to that date, even having my children and then having a stillborn baby, basically were stuck in my body. So being able to move my body in a way that was somatically aware, meaning the mind-body connection was there to all different aspects and parts, not just holding postures, strengthening, toning. It was all facets of the human psyche, and then also the human body. So the fascial system and the subconscious. And that's why I loved Bhuti yoga so much. And I still do. But a huge piece of it is encoded. It's sort of it's hard for me to talk about all of these things because they're threaded in to the fabric of my existence. I don't just call myself a yoga teacher and only practice yoga in a yoga studio. Yoga is my whole fucking life. This is what I eat, sleep, and breathe. And the commodifying of it and the capitalization of it is just a part of the matrix. But true yoga is actually being able to see outside of that, and even to see outside of this avatar, and even some of the words that I'm saying, and going to the underlying, which is the frequency and the energy of which I'm presenting. Because the universe doesn't respond to what you want. The universe responds to who the fuck you are. It's vibrational, 100% vibrational. And any of these thought loops that I've had are frequencies that I've allowed in. So a lot of what I did was rip away the host, which is myself, which is the core identity of who I am. And that's been very difficult. But I think being in a land like Florida, where I talk about this all the time, you have the caves, the humidity, the sea, the crystal sands on this side of Florida. It's made of 99% crystal quartz. It's literally white. You've got the mangroves. these, and it like makes me emotional because we also have banyans, and some of them are not native to like the Florida land itself, like they were implanted here and then just sort of grew here. But all of that mix of energy is extremely alchemical and magical. It's just simply magical here, even with the hurricanes, even with the rain. Like on a day like today, I mean, it's just like incredible. I'm incredibly blessed, and anybody who gets to be here is blessed. But the water is, there's just so many other things that have corrupted it that it's very difficult for me to even like talk about, because it hurts me like on a spiritual level. It's just, I feel everything that the land feels. And I think that that's a huge piece of what a soul code is. It's encoded into your soul, that so much so that it's difficult to put words to, but your words create worlds. So a lot of what my practice is using my words to communicate and build worlds. So the Soul Codes philosophy is based upon 3 pillars. This is what I've established in the past like couple of months. This has been something that's been brewing for a while. I just have a lot of trauma from owning a business during COVID, and owning, it wasn't even ownership, but like being a Shakti energy force for holding space for a lot of women. And like that whole experience in and of itself is just so dear to me, because it was like an incubator for what was to come. And so to have that sort of almost ripped away immediately, and then like that, the emotional piece of it, and then the business piece of it, it's just overall traumatic. So I think like when I'm getting restarted, even if there's no risk involved with any money at all, it's still looking at the self-doubt, looking at why I don't feel good enough, and taking action anyway. And so that's why I started this video with, your greatest challenges are also your greatest teachers. I am an affirmative oriented teacher, where in a lot of the circles that we've held for the teacher trainings and different like spiritual healings, I don't know what you want to call them, they were gatherings. A lot of it is unconditional positive regard in a way. I wouldn't like say that we dismiss the shadow by any means. We always brought up and acknowledged the shadow, but we had unconditional positive regard for any soul who entered the space. And so even in this space, so that's one of the pillars, is that wisdom, which is a traditional sort of yogic, ancient healing, sacred arts wisdom, which is that everybody is valid exactly how they are. And the more that, I mean, I think like we're all inherently judgmental, but a lot of it is you can alchemize that judgment into discernment and really feed it into what feels right to you. Because in these circles, some folks is going to speak from their old belief systems and their subconscious, just because, remember how I said, the universe isn't hearing what you want, it's hearing who you are. And one of the things that you start to refine with Tantrika Kundalini in specific is the ability to only hear energy. Like, you're not even hearing the words that the person's saying, you're just reading their energy. It's a gift. It's also like, there's a lot of room for misunderstanding in that, because not everybody is feeling everything on the frequency level, and unaware of what's in their frequency. And I was one of those people for a long time, unaware of what frequencies were being projected out, because I hadn't gone through all of the clutter of the subconscious. So the second piece is the science. Wisdom science is a whole other aspect than just science itself. Wisdom science is like neurological understanding of that this is not just me making some shit up that feels good. It's our biological conditioning and our responses biologically on a cellular level to what's happening, and our responses to what's happening in the outer environment. So in that space of pause, we're able to reprogram and recode it. And that's one of the second pillar of soul codes, and then the third pillar is spirit. And a lot of folks shy away from this and want to stay within speaking about God in general terms, but I speak directly because I'm a devotee to God. That's all I live for, is the grand omnipresent design in all beings and all things. And emotional authenticity, and realizing that connection that we have is the source. It isn't your job. It's not your bank account. It's not your significant other. It is your direct connection to God that sources everything. And that is what Soul Codes is built off of, is that fortified connection. With that connection, you're able to pretty much eliminate addictions, eliminate depression, eliminate anxiety. Okay, so the methodology. So the methodology of everything that I'm doing is not really the secret sauce. The methods are very simple. You stay consistent daily, and it is a moment-to-moment practice to shift back into that spiritual connection that we just talked about. A lot of folks think that there's like a secret sauce to how people get rich and how people stay spiritual and how people stay good and whole. It's literally a choice in a moment-to-moment basis, and there's times where we may not make that choice. But the benefit of having somebody in your corner is that you already know. So the person that you want in your corner is affirming, and that you already know. You just need to remember. You're just here to that's the methodology, remembrance. And so basically, understanding the process of how health crisis and grief create opportunities for transformation is very important. That's like the central piece to all of the trainings. And in that process, emotional authenticity. So I didn't just heal overnight. I went through a very ugly stage where I literally looked like a boy, like a 12-year-old boy. And I was still healing from losing a child and having cancer. So, and I'm still healing. Like, as I speak to you, this is me processing my healing. There is nothing about me that would claim to know exactly how to heal. All I'm sharing is essentially the methodology, like the philosophy, the methodology, and the journey. And then in that, hopefully you can find some gems in it. So the Soul Codes approach is extremely affirmative. Everything that I don't even talk about trauma. I don't even like that word. It's resistance building. So we acknowledge like what we've been through, but then we constantly reinforce that we're still here. You can focus on all of the things that caused you to be here, which is what therapy would help you with. But in this type of space with yoga and Tantrika Kundalini in particular, primordial yoga, these practices that are more feminine, it is unconditional positive regard for the highest self. And so what I give is personalized guidance. So how the combination of healing modalities creates sustainable change. You don't even really need any money for any of this, okay? Like, here's the secret sauce, is that a lot of people feel like they need to get the blocks. They got to get their yoga mat. When I had the studio, they would buy all the apparel and the yoga, and it was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, this is really profitable. This part of the business is super profitable. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. But you don't actually even need any of that. There was one filming that I did for a promotion for all of this, and I had forgotten my yoga mat, out of all things, like my beloved yoga mat that I won't let go of. And I just did the yoga in the sand. And that's like literally what I want to teach or I am teaching, I should say, but in a more refined way, is that what we do every single time, even if you relapse back into not doing it for a little while, what you do on a consistent basis is building capacity. And that capacity is your inner resources to be able to sustain. Because if somebody would have told me 10 years ago what I was about to go through after what I had just went through with cancer and losing my child and everything like that, I would have been like, holy shit, there's no way. But you build every practice, every time you make it to the mat, every time you lift that weight. My trainer used to say every rep counts, and it does. And so it just builds your integrity, which opens up your energy to be able to build upon itself. I'm just going to pause really quick and read the comments. There's like a ton of comments. We are energy, we are star, we have seen the beauty of creation and destruction, perhaps infinitely. Loving this, loving, bringing awareness to energy. Energy is the key to it all. Yes, Shami Yogi, yes. So true. Once you can speak that language, everything else falls into place and it makes sense. And then you start being able to speak very clearly to other people in an authentic resonance. And you'll see people start to drop off real quick when you start speaking like that. But what it actually does is the universe respond to that. In affirming yourself, the universe then affirm you. I don't know if universe is the right word, but all of the grand omnipresent design, the God energy around you, which is everything, it starts to respond to what you're emanating out. And so professional evolution, okay. So if you're looking to become a teacher, or if you want to refine your skill set, or if you want more confidence, or I don't know, if you see something in me where you're like, yeah, I want to learn from that person. Basically, I take you one-on-one. The process is I take you one-on-one, and I am an advisor. I don't consider myself a coach. I don't know if I like that word, but I am an advisor. And when it comes to yoga, mainly I am just articulating body wisdom. So a lot of people come to me for really basic things like cueing, how to do like chair yoga, like really some of the more basic things, which are actually some of the most advanced things. Because when we can stay true to the foundation, essentially you're able to integrate pretty much in any type of situation you could find yourself in. If you teach at the gym, if you want to own a studio, if you want to teach at a studio, if you want to integrate it into a therapeutic practice, if you want to go virtual, or if you want to do one-on-ones, the approach is always from emotional authenticity, and it's always centered on the other person. So whatever they're feeling, basically what I give you is the tools to be able to sort of like navigate what they're feeling. Like my whole teacher training is about you navigating through your own wisdom, but learning learning the rooted history of it, and certain ways to say it, but it's all led by your own intuition. So, because your intuition is powerful, like we can't ever discount the power of awareness. Awareness is a super force, because once it's out of the dark and we're like you're aware, and then acknowledgement is sort of like a sequel to that. That's when things start to alchemize and they start to cook in the kitchen. And when you're cooking in the kitchen, that's when you start to shift timelines. I don't know if shifting timelines is the right word. Your spirit begins to evolve in a quicker way. And it's not that you want to do it fast, but it's mainly like the quicker that you are able to adapt and continue to evolve with that alchemy, the more energy you have. And that's why I think that I'm anti-aging. I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I'm saying like the pranayama lengthens your telomeres. Thinking good thoughts of good nature, pure thoughts, essentially allows you to stay in the fountain of youth. And then, of course, all of the foundational things, food, water, shelter, things like that. So educational standards. Okay, so basically the educational standards that I'm bringing to the table are that it's accredited. I think mainly the reason why I like to highlight that piece is because it shows a commitment, a continuous learning and growth, a devotion to grand omnipresent design, and that grand omnipresent design doesn't just stay stagnant and do the same. Consistency is the key to learning and growth. And then that the yogis call it the tapas, this like fire that's within, that's sort of driving your self-discipline. It's like what drives you, which is why I call the 21 days sacred sadhana, sacred flame, because I'm giving away free game once again here, but all anxiety really is a disbalance of fire energies. And so as you come into balancing fire energies, and they exist in two places within the body, the root and the heart, when you can start to release the fire from those areas and the excess fire through the pathways, using visualization and also breathing techniques and specific movement techniques, you relieve yourself instantly from anxiety. Now, I'm just presenting one truth. There are multiple ways to approach this. There are multiple truths. Just go ahead and Google how to relieve anxiety and you'll see everybody is correct. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm not sitting here saying that I have the one ultimate truth. I'm saying this is the truth as I understand it. And this is how I don't actually live with the A word, because I don't feed that egregore at all. As I said in my last video, in my game, I'm always winning. And I think that it's sort of a grounded level of delusion, if you will. And so when you're releasing fire in those two ways, basically stomping your feet and then doing Kapalabhati breathing. And then there's a number of other techniques which we do in the sadhana, but those two you can take with you as tangible techniques to do on a moment-to-moment basis, and they will automatically drop you in and begin to start regulating your nervous system. And then as you're regulating your nervous system, you're affirming on a cell, you talk to your cells, thank you cells for oscillating and forming organs. Thank you organs for functioning without me even having to do anything. There's no efforting in that. I could go on about that. So the next point is client testimonials, common themes that I find with the different people that I work with, the vision forward, the invite to join, and the call to action. These are all things that are in the outline. So if you want to know who I've worked with or what they think, there's a highlight reel on my Instagram that says street cred, and there's another one that says reviews. Both of those will show you the consistency of the work that I put in, and then also like the work that those people have put in. Because ultimately, the only work that I put in is that I was there and I was showing up. Those people put in the work, and then when they're saying positive things about me, it's actually their work. So it's a collaborative partnership effort. No man is an island, and I am not a guru. All I am doing is guiding and advising in a specific way. So the vision forward is to really look to build my YouTube channel. If you're catching this on Instagram, you're very lucky because it's not going to stay on Instagram. I'm moving it. Instagram is like, okay, so like I was just telling my husband this, like Facebook is like a yearbook of people you went to high school with, basically. And like your family members. Instagram is like a party that you go to in college. And YouTube is really where the seekers are. So most of the people who join Soul Codes are from YouTube. And that's something that I'm really looking to focus on and grow. And the vision forward is, I still teach in person, but the majority of the people that I work with in person are back home in Michigan. So they're at a different location. So I'm getting really comfortable with working virtually with people. It's been very difficult as a 1983 baby to be able to work virtually with people, but the vision moving forward is to be able to reach many different types of people in this way. The reach is greater than just staying in one place. And I think that there's so many other topics I can go into with transhumanism and all that stuff, but to rein it in, we need to use this as a tool to be able to connect on the soul level. Fuck numbers. Like this. So for this whole marketing thing, I don't know. I hope the person isn't on here, but he might be. But shout out to him because he's doing the work too. He was going to charge me $6,000 up front and then $99 to maintain it. Okay, so $99 is not bad, but $6,000 up front for what, right? Basically, they tore me down and said that my engagement was shit. I need to increase the amount of followers I have, and this and that and the other thing. And I was like, I'm not trying to influence anybody here. I'm actually encouraging people to de-influence and to really use your discernment to basically become sovereign. And if anyone is trying to like sell you on something, it's probably not the right fit. It's probably not aligned. Because like, I know that when I was going through all of my finances and stuff like that and really doing a reboot to understand my prosperity codes, I looked at every single thing I was spending money on and said to myself, why? I mean, this wasn't even just my husband looking at it going, why? It was me going, why are you spending $200 on nails? Which, by the way, I do my own nails. These are my own nails. And I used to spend $200 on nails. So, I mean, that's ridiculous. They grow within 2 weeks. Anyway, in going through that whole process, that is how we need to approach every single... If you're looking to really reboot yourself, find the transformation, do Kundalini yoga, it requires going into those crevices and those depths and asking yourself, why the fuck is this here? If you're not doing that, and if that's like, you know, people, there's a phrase that the Gen Z says, like, it's not that deep. Like my kids always say, it's not that deep, Mom. It actually is that deep. Because if you're even allowing a little bit of the parasite in, it's going to leach on to any part of your soul. This egregore of anxiety and its cousin, depression, wants to put its claws into all of the souls. And the more that we feed it with our feeling worried or anxious or whatever these lower vibrational feelings are, the bigger and more aggressive and predatory that it gets. So the more that you're able to regulate moment to moment and just kind of step outside of it and go, and then tap back into that connection, detach from the thoughts, and really value your own peace, it's nothing that can really get to you. Another thing that I think of when I'm sort of processing it out loud with you guys is the loneliness aspect of it too. So I said to God, like 2 years ago when I came to Florida, please remove anybody from my sphere who has any kind of evil eye, who does not have my or my family's highest intent. Please remove them from my energy field and allow me to see and be aware so that I take right action and that I'm fully aligned with what I say I'm aligned with, which is, you know, being centered, being devoted to God. The devotion to God is no joke. That's not just something that I say like, oh, I'm devoted to God. It is a relentless drive for consistency in that connection, because everything outside in this external world will try to get you to be separated, or that like you need something outside of yourself. You need to even for a connection to God, you need a church to go to. And all of that is false. And the entire thing is an illusion that keeps getting worse. It's like getting, how do I say it without sounding dystopian? It's a beast with many faces. And the metaphor is the multi-faced beast. And the more you can learn to adapt, build your integrity to have your energy naturally build upon itself, the more these other lower level things will just simply fall away. And so the invitation to join and the call to action is through basically these talks. And I feel like I'm going to do more of them. I feel more comfortable doing it because I realize what the channels mean to me. And in my game, all of it is to connect at the soul level. So if some way, somehow you're getting the message, it's because you're tuned into that frequency, and now we're aligned, and now we're sovereign. All of the external structures that we're relying on are going to fall away. And you're going to be left with just yourself. And so the best way to step into alignment is to accept yourself in your wholeness. So any part of yourself that you don't like or doesn't feel good enough, almost like personify it. So now I'm just giving unsolicited whatever, but I'm mostly talking to myself because that's what these things are, my own healing journey. So anyway, that's the story. The invite to join is the 21-day sacred sadhana. It starts on 2/2. There are 3 synchronous sessions, Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. If you cannot make those, all of it's recorded. You go through it 21 days, and it's basically the steps to relieving anxiety for good. And yeah, I don't know if there's a guarantee on that at all, but I'm saying this is perspective, one perspective of the truth and what's worked for me. And I don't really ever really suffer from that. And if I do, it's very momentary. So, and then the call to action is to join that and to also check out soulcodes.love. So the guy that I met with the marketing thing, I'm supposed to have like a collector. So like something that like you give your email address and then I give you the free video. If you put your email address in, you're going to get all the free stuff. So like basically what I'm forming is like Meridian, like the classes that were the most popular in that studio were Meridian Magic Yoga. So it's understanding the traditional Chinese meridian lines in our energy and basically how to get it to be in alignment through yoga postures. I posted one today that was chair yoga, but it was like the worst possible quality ever. So if you have any tips on good cameras to use for just like my house or whatever, or really outside is really mainly where I'm going to be doing them. And then also, so I'm pretty actually booked for the Decode Recode, which is the one-on-one coaching thing. I have 11 people and I did not expect that. And I think I have 2 more in my inbox. And it's like, I have such a hard time saying no. So one thing that actually after this sadhana, what I'm going to be working through is basically a mini course on boundaries, because it's really for myself. It's really what I put myself through and breaking down my process. And so I'm like really detailed with words. And the benefit, if you're already a yoga teacher, is that it gives you another layer of languaging to use when you're working with your clients one-on-one. So the intent here isn't for you to work with me. I mean, you can. I have students who have worked with me since the beginning, since 2013, and I love them dearly. But the intent is for you to eventually just be free. Like, you don't actually really need to be working with me by any means. It's only because you want to practice yoga with me or whatever. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm deleting this off Instagram. It's only going to be on YouTube. So tune in to @soulcodes.love on YouTube and subscribe. Leave comments on there because that's the channel that I'm going to grow the most. And where I'm going to really be like bearing a lot of the teachings and like my soul. So I love you all. Thank you so much for listening. Satnam, yogis.